She thought she had found safe harbour, a loving husband, a false dream, a perfect match crafted online. But behind closed doors, the mask was cracking, and the man she believed was rescuing her was actually setting her up. Debra Newell, a successful businesswoman and mother of 4, met him on a dating site. He called himself Dirty John. From the outside, he was charming, attentive, even heroic. But to her daughters, he was something else. A liar, a manipulator, a predator. For nearly 2 years, John Meehan wove a web of deceit, control, coercion, until one night in August 2016, the nightmare ended in blood. He attacked her daughter. She fought back, and when it was over, he was dead, stabbed in self-defense. This isn't just a story of murder, it's a cautionary tale about control, about toxic love, about fighting back when no one else will. This is the real story of Debra Newell and Dirty John. In October 2014, a successful interior designer named Debra Newell, a mother of 4 in her late 50s, logged onto a dating site for women over 50, searching perhaps for a second chance at love. She found him. John Meehan, claiming to be an anesthesiologist with service in Iraq, self-described hero with charm to spare. 5 weeks later, they married in Las Vegas. 2 months in, he'd moved in, driving her expensive cars, distancing her from her own daughters. But as romantic as it seemed, cracks emerged fast. Meehan had lied before, claiming to be a doctor, erasing his past. A felony rap sheet and arrests for drug theft were waiting just beneath the surface. He loved, until he controlled. Soon Debra's world shifted. He watched her with cameras, called her clients, isolated her from family. Debra's daughters sensed danger before she did. They saw the smiles turn hollow. The questions she dismissed answered themselves with every secret he kept. Her world had seemed perfect. A luxury life on Orange County's coast. Soon that facade crumbled under the weight of lies, manipulation, and a fear she couldn't admit, even to herself. The love that once felt like security was now a shadow, a trap. John Meehan didn't scream, he didn't hit, but every room he entered changed. Debra's friends vanished one by one. Her business clients complained about strange emails. Her daughters, Jacqueline and Tara, watched as their mother withdrew, silenced. He began controlling her phone, monitoring her GPS, questioning her every move. And when she'd pull away, he'd cry, apologize, blame trauma, the war, the pain she couldn't understand. But outside those walls, the truth was louder than ever. John had served no time in Iraq. He wasn't a doctor. He was a convicted felon with a 20-year history of deception. In Ohio, in Michigan, in California, he had stolen drugs, pretended to be medical staff, frightened women, threatened nurses. There were restraining orders, police records, lawsuits. Yet somehow, he convinced Debra it was all behind him. When her daughter Jacqueline ran a background check, what she found made her physically ill. Mugshots, prison time, allegations of coercion, of stalking. She begged her mother to leave. But by then, John had control. Control over Debra's house, her finances, her perception of herself. The threats began. Anonymous emails warned the girls to stay away. One day, Tara found a picture of herself defaced online. Eyes blacked out, words scribbled over, "You'll pay." Debra left, but he found her. She changed her number. He changed tactics. And still, Debra hoped maybe he'd stop. But John Meehan didn't stop. He never stopped. And by the time she realized what he was capable of, he was already one step too close. It was no longer a question of love. It was survival. By now, Debra's world had collapsed inward. Her daughters barely spoke to her. Her business was suffering. She lived behind locked doors, but locks didn't matter. Because John Meehan knew how to find her, how to charm his way into places she thought were safe. And every time she tried to pull away, something happened. Her tires slashed, her car alarm disabled, the sense that someone had been inside her home, even though nothing was missing. It was Jacqueline who issued the final ultimatum. Either you leave him or I'm gone for good. And for a moment, Debra listened. She disappeared into a hotel under an alias, stayed off the grid, blocked his number. But that only made John more desperate. He began showing up outside Tara's apartment, calling her from burner phones, threatening the dog, asking mutual friends for her whereabouts. He would pace in front of her window at night as smiling. One evening, Tara came home to find a note taped to her door. It read, "I don't need to be invited in." The police were called, but there was little they could do. John hadn't technically broken the law yet. Debra tried to move on. She reconnected with her daughters, even filed for a restraining order. But the system was slow, and John was fast. By late summer, he was camping out in a stolen car, knife tucked under the seat, zip ties in the glove box, a plan forming. He knew Tara's routine, her schedule, her parking lot. And one warm evening in August, he waited. August 20th, 2016 started like any other Saturday. Tara had just gotten home from her dog walking shift, grocery bags in one hand, phone in the other, tired but not alert. What she didn't know was that John Meehan had been waiting, hiding, watching her apartment, calculating the exact moment she'd come home. And then he attacked. Out of nowhere, he lunged, tackling her to the ground in the parking lot, a knife in his hand. But Tara fought back. She kicked, she screamed. She did everything her survival instinct could muster. In the chaos, the knife dropped. She got to it first. And in those next few seconds that felt like a lifetime, Tara made a decision. She stabbed him, again and again and again, 13 times, until he stopped moving, until the screaming stopped, until the fear inside her had nothing left to react to. Neighbours had heard everything. Police arrived, and there in the middle of the sunlit parking lot lay John Meehan. His double life, his manipulation, his violence, over. But for Tara and Debra, nothing was over. The blood on her hands wasn't just John's. It was the aftermath of years of fear, confusion, manipulation, finally released in a single horrific moment. And now, the world would learn the truth about who he really was. When the sirens faded and John Meehan's body was taken away, something else began. A media storm. News outlets ran with headlines like wildfire. Daughter kills man in self-defense. The real Dirty John. But beneath the sensationalism was something deeper, something harder to digest. A mother, Debra, trying to make sense of the man she once loved. A daughter, Tara, struggling with what she had done, even if it was to survive. Police launched a full investigation, but the evidence was clear. Tara acted in self-defense. The wounds, the location, the surveillance footage, it all lined up. There would be no charges. But legal freedom didn't mean emotional freedom. Debra sat through interview after interview, each question cutting deeper than the last. How did she not know? Why didn't she leave sooner? Was love really that blinding? And for Tara, the nightmares didn't stop. The flashbacks, the weight, the guilt, for saving her own life. The public rallied around them, but sympathy didn't silence the voices in their heads. Behind closed doors, healing was not linear. It was jagged, unforgiving, slow. And yet, something else began to rise in its place. Awareness. More women came forward, sharing eerily similar stories, tales of John's manipulation, control, threats, from different states, different years, same man. Suddenly, this wasn't just a family's tragedy. It was a wake-up call. And from the ashes of one man's lies, something unthinkable began to form. Clarity. Some stories end in silence. This one didn't. Months passed, then years, but for Debra and Tara, the past never truly went away. It echoed in every headline, every documentary, every conversation with strangers who said, "You saved me." Because what started as survival slowly turned into advocacy. Debra began to speak publicly, not just about John Meehan, but about emotional abuse, gaslighting, how predators like him don't always come with warning labels. She stood on stages, looked into the eyes of women who had lived their own nightmares, and told them they weren't alone. Tara, she chose to stay quieter, but not invisible. She shared her story on her terms, every painful detail, every moment she thought she might die, every ounce of courage it took to fight back. And somewhere in that darkness, they created light. A podcast, a book, a voice that didn't shake anymore when it said, "This is what abuse looks like, even when he's smiling." For so long, their lives had been defined by a man who manipulated, threatened, and deceived. But in the end, that wasn't the story people remembered. They remembered two women who refused to be broken. They remembered a daughter who fought back. They remembered a family who reclaimed their truth. And today, when someone asks about Debra Newell and Tara, it's not just about the man who fooled them. It's about the women who rose after him. If love could blind you, what would it take to finally open your eyes? Debra Newell believed in redemption. She believed people could change. That if you just loved them enough, maybe the darkness would fade. But what do you do when the man you love isn't just broken, but dangerous? What do you do when trusting him might cost you your life? Some will say she should have seen it coming. Others will ask how she didn't walk away sooner. But the truth is, predators like John Meehan don't knock down the door. They slip in through cracks, through compliments, through charm, through promises that sound like hope. And by the time you realize you're in danger, it's already too late. But Debra, Tara, they made sure it wasn't too late for others. This wasn't just a story about abuse. It was a story about survival, about daughters protecting mothers, and mothers learning to forgive themselves. It was about reclaiming power even when you feel powerless. And maybe the most haunting question isn't what he did, but how many others are out there doing the same right now. So I ask you, if someone you love changed overnight, would you know? Or would you be like Debra, watching the man she trusted slowly turn into someone she didn't recognize? If this story made you feel something, anger, fear, heartbreak, or hope, then let it live beyond this screen. Because these stories aren't just entertainment. They're warnings, they're mirrors, and they're true. This is Beyond Her Rage.